By what name are you known?
There are some who call me Tim.
Welcome to another episode of Timmy Talks, the channel where we talk old school magic. And also welcome to Hilversum, the Netherlands for the Hill Giant Cup number 5. This is the first episode of a series of episodes where I'm going to show you games played at this tournament all the way to the finals. Now in Hilversum we are playing according to the Swedish rules. That means that there's no mana burn and no fallen empires in this rule set, and also only one strip mine. If you want to know more about the rules, please check out the description below for all the information. And in today's match, we see Edo taking on Richard. These are two former winners. We have Edo, who's on a blue-white mid-range deck, and Richard is on a horrible, I'm sorry, Richard, okay, beautiful in its own way, icy prison deck. It's really a prison deck. It's, oh man, it's so tough to play against, I can tell. Because I played against it at this tournament. But you know more about that in the deck decks. First, I would like to tell you that as always, you can also choose to skip actually that same deck deck section and go straight to the games. I know some people prefer to do that. They go to the games first, then check out the deck decks. The easiest way to do this is by checking out the description below, because there you will find several timestamps. Just click on the timestamp MtG Games. It'll take you straight to the games, and in that same description below you can also find a link to the Timmy Talks Patreon page, and that is patreon.com/TimmyTalks, and there you can find out how you can support me as a content creator. So if you enjoy the videos that I make for you, please consider becoming a patron. Check out patreon.com/TimmyTalks. You can already become a patron for just $1. Okay, and now that that's all out of the way, I'm going to start with the deck decks, and I'm going to start with the deck of the player on the left. That is Edo. Let's take a look at his white-blue mid-range brew. And here we see the deck of Edo. So this is blue and white mid-range. Some people know this also as a triple S deck, or some people call it a Lion Dip deck because it's got 4 Savannah Lions and 4 Surrender Freets. And so other people call this a Fantasy Zoo deck. So there are just lots of different names. I just like to call it blue-white mid-range. When you're looking at this deck photo, you're maybe noticing that Hill Giant in the right bottom corner in the sideboard of Edo and thinking, why is there a Hill Giant in there? Well, he won the tournament in 2023. And the cool thing is about old school, or at least I think it's a cool thing, when you win the tournament, you get the card that it's named after. So in this case, a Hill Giant, and everybody signs it. So everybody signed the card that was in that tournament in 2023. So there's a signature of me on there somewhere as well. And then when you go back to that tournament, you're expected to play that card in your deck somewhere. So for a lot of people, they put it in their sideboard, right? So it's there. When we're looking at this deck, I'm not surprised that Edo won the tournament with this blue-white mid-range deck. Blue-white is just a really strong color combination, right? Because you've got control, you've got the power, you've got really good creatures. So it's kind of all these components that are really good in Magic that you get access to just by playing with 2 colors. And that's actually one of the things I like about this deck, is that Edo kept it to just 2 colors. I think then that your deck is more consistent. There are some interesting choices, by the way, that Edo has made. And maybe it's good to start with the white part of the deck because it's mainly white. He's playing with 2 Armageddons and 2 Land Taxes, which is interesting because he's not going fully for that strategy. And I think these cards are ideal to not play a 4 of or a 3 of, because Land Tax on its own is really good. Armageddon timed right on its own is really good. So you don't have to build a whole strategy around it. You can just play it as a 1 of or a 2 of, and they're still really good cards. And also Land Tax in this deck works because look at the amount of basics that Edo has. Because he's only playing with 2 colors, he's got a lot more basics, making Land Tax a better choice. In other blue-white builds that, for example, splash Regrove, splash maybe Wheel, a lot of people splash, of course, the 2 black cards, Mind Twist, Demonic Tutor, Land Tax wouldn't be as good because you're playing with a lot more basics. You're maybe playing with City of Brass. We're not seeing a single City of Brass here, which is another plus, I think. That makes Land Tax a lot better. Another thing I noticed when I'm looking at this list is that he's playing with 4 Disenchants and a Divine Offering. A lot of players make the choice to go for 3 Disenchants and a Divine Offering, or sometimes 2 Disenchants and a Divine Offering. The meta at the moment is shifting more and more towards artifacts. So I think it makes sense to go maybe a little bit on the overkill and say, hey, I'm going to play 4 Disenchants and I'm going to play a Divine Offering. It's good to have 5 ways to remove things, especially in combination with Armageddon. You want to take care of the lands, yes, but then if they have a lot of mana rocks, that whole Armageddon is not going to do much. So you also have to take care of the artifact mana of your opponent. And if you have 4 Disenchants and a Divine Offering, that can work. Also remember, we're playing in a Swedish format, meaning no mana burn, meaning there are a lot of Suchis around. So Disenchant, especially Divine Offering, is such a great answer to Suchi. Suchi just becomes like a 4 life for you for just 2 mana, and your opponent has to invest 4 to cast that Suchi, and you've got Divine Offering on instant speed dial. It's I can tell from experience, it's a good feeling to kind of Divine Offering a Suchi. It is really nice. And then when we're looking at the blue section of the deck, again, he's made some interesting choices. I think kind of to make space for all the disenchants, the land taxes, and all that stuff, you got to trim a little bit. And one of the things he's done is he's trimmed in blue, right? He's not playing with Psionic Blast, which is a lot of players play with Psionic Blasts. He's not playing with counterspells. A lot of people play with counterspells. Although I have to say that counterspell is going a little bit down in popularity. You see more and more decks choosing to play with 2 counterspells and a mana drain, or no counter spells at all, but go for Psy Blast and a mana drain. In this case, we see that Edo has made that decision to go more into white, not play with Psionic Blasts, not play with counter spells. He is playing with mana drain, and of course he's playing with Ancestral Recall, Time Walk, and with the Brain Geyser, not playing with the Time Twister. And I guess Time Twister doesn't really fit in the deck because he's playing more control. He's not playing with burn. Like if you want to burn someone out, then Time Twister can be really good. But that's not the case, of course. If you're playing combo, Time Twister can be really good because you're looking for specific components. But yeah, in this case, I can understand that he's not going for Time Twister. So yeah, just overall looking at this deck, it's a strong deck. It's won in the past. Maybe it's going to win it again. Who knows? But this is the deck of Edo. Now let's take a look at the deck of his opponent. And here we see the deck of Richard, and this deck is really a prison deck. It's so nasty, so nasty. As you can see, it's blue, it's green, it's black, but it really revolves around artifacts. They're really the most important component. Maybe, by the way, before I continue, you notice that in the sideboard there of Richard, we see a Hill Giant, a signed Hill Giant, and that is because he won this tournament before. And when you win the tournament, you get a card that the tournament is named after. So in this case, he got a Hill Giant. We all signed the Hill Giant. My signature is on there somewhere. And yeah, this deck, man, it is horrible. It's a prison deck. So what a prison deck wants to do, in case you don't know, it wants to make sure that the opponent cannot do anything. It's in a prison, cannot move, but it's still alive. And then at a certain point, he wants to win. And I think the win con here of his deck is, of course, Titania Song. Titania Song, an enchantment from Antiquities, 1 green and 3, I believe. And it turns all the non-artifact creatures into artifact creatures, and they lose all their abilities, and they get the power and toughness equal to their casting cost. So, for example, your Icy Manipulator turns into a 4/4 vanilla creature, and then you can start attacking. One of the good things about Titania Song is, even if your opponent has a way to remove the Titania Song, the ability of Titania Song remains till the end of the turn. So they stay like 4/4 creatures, 2/2 creatures, whatever. Making it really hard to kind of deal with the Titania Song. Now, what does this deck want to do? Because Titania Song is just at the end of the prison process. What this deck wants to do, it wants to play out the Winter Orb. Winter Orb is an artifact that says you can only untap 1 land during your untap phase. And then you go and untap your 1 land, and you're really happy, right? Because you just have to play a little bit slower. It's super annoying, but at least you still get to untap a land. Well, that's where you're wrong, because Richard is also playing with Icy Manipulator. So with Icy Manipulator, he's going to tap down the land that you just untapped, meaning you just don't have any mana anymore. Okay, you still have your mana rocks, and maybe you have mana dorks, but that's it. Your lands, you can no longer use them when he has his Winter Orb and his Icy Manipulator on the table. And of course, when he plays it all out, maybe you still have a few lands untapped. So you just got to really think about, okay, how am I going to use that mana to maybe destroy these artifacts? Well, that is also where cards come in like Power Sink. Power Sink in this deck is very powerful because Power Sink is not just a good counterspell, it also forces you to tap down your lands. If you tap down your lands, you've got a problem because of Winter Orb. It is not good, I can tell you that. And then, of course, he's got a way to deal with your creatures, and that is the Abyss. He's playing with 3 copies of the Abyss, of course, the powerful enchant world from Legend. So this card says that during your upkeep, you have to sacrifice a non-artifact creature. Which again is not great, because then you're going to lose your non-artifact creatures. If, of course, your opponent is playing with artifacts, that could be a difficult thing for Richard to deal with. But of course, Richard does have counter magic. He also is playing with 2 copy artifacts himself, and he's playing with relic barriers. And relic barriers tap down an artifact, which is really good. So if your opponent is playing artifact heavy and thinks, the Abyss is not going to work against my Trike, my Suchi, my other artifact creatures, well, tough love, because he's got Relic Barriers, he can tap them down. And talking about Relic Barrier, Winter Orb is a known combo. What it does is when you tap down your Winter Orb, it's one of only 2 artifacts that gets deactivated by tapping them down. The other one is Howling Mine. So he can use his Relic Barrier, or of course his Icy, to tap down his Winter Orb, meaning he still gets to untap, but you don't. So it's like super unfair. This deck, it's super controlling, it's super nasty, it's probably gonna win. I think the Achilles heel of a deck like this is a very consistent quick deck, like a mono green deck, like a 2-color creature heavy deck. Just decks that go really heavy. And of course, decks that have a lot of weapons against artifacts. Like I remember when I played against Richard, I won one of the games. Why? Because of Energy Flux. I casted Energy Flux and he couldn't counter it, and that was that. It was too much. He couldn't pay all the mana for all the artifacts he had on the board at the time. So Artifact Hate is really good against this deck, and creature heavy decks, or quick creature heavy decks, are really good in my experience against this type of deck. And because of these 2 weaknesses, I think it's really commendable, that he's actually won a tournament with this deck, because yes, it's a good deck, but it has the weak spots. And of course, what you see a lot with these prison decks and combo decks is after the first game, you kind of know what Richard wants to do, what the opponent of the combo deck or prison deck wants to do. You can sideboard accordingly, and you start playing differently, and that's what makes it more difficult if you're the person who's playing that prison or combo deck. So winning game 1 is actually almost a necessity with decks like these, because it's going to get tougher in game 2 and 3 because your opponent knows what your strategy is. Okay, so this is the deck of Richard. It looks very, very scary. We've looked at the deck of his opponent, so let's see if it really is scary. Let's go to the match. Game number 1 here of the Hill Giant Cup number 5. And here we see Richard drawing his 7 cards. It's actually his second draw. He's taking a mulligan. Here we see the hand. Icy Manipulator there. Winter Orb. That black card, could it be a Mind Twist or a Demonic? Anyway, there's a card being put on the bottom. And I believe Richard's also on the play. So Richard's playing a deck, a 3-color deck, blue, green, and black. And it's a prison deck built around Winter Orb and Icy Manipulator. And he has Titania Song as a win con, a single Titania Song. So pretty cool deck. And he's but horrible to play against, I have to say. And he's playing against the Edo, and Edo is playing a white-blue deck. A very strong and well-known strategy. And of course, he's playing with a full playset of Savannah Lines. And here we can see Savannah Lines turn 1. And a Relic Barrier here being played out by Richard in a pass. And there is an island. There's the attack for 2. So Richard dropping here to 18. Gonna tap 2. What are we gonna see? Oh, look at that, a Time Walk. This is really good. He can attack again. And if he has another land, potentially play out a Surrender Profit, playing with 4 Surrender Profits as well. So that would be pretty devastating actually for Richard. What card are we gonna see here? Okay, there we see a Mishra's Factory. Also kind of annoying, right? That means he's got 4 damage on board. Of course, Factory now still has Summoning Sickness. So we're probably just gonna see the attack with the lines. Okay, tapping 2. What else are we going to see for 2? Oh, Divine Offering. That means 2 life gained here for Edo as well. And getting rid of that Relic Barrier. Edo is playing with the Divine Offering and 4 Disenchant. So actually has a lot of answers to the artifacts of Richard. I think for Richard, this could be a pretty tough matchup. And he's now on 16. There we see an Underground Sea. And we see a Black Lotus. He had, of course, that Icy Manipulator in his starting hand. I wonder if we're going to see that crack in the Lotus. Tapping the Bayou. There we go. There's the Icy Manipulator. So he can now tap down at least the Savannah Lines or, of course, the Mishra's Factory. So that means instead of 4 damage, you only take 2 points of damage. Tapping down here the Factory in the upkeep of Edo. And that's, of course, the choice that you have. You can also say, you know what, I'm going to wait until you're going to animate it and then tap down the Factory, because then you need to invest 2 mana. But if you do that, you are giving, of course, Edo an extra mana to work with, you know, and maybe that's just the mana he needs to do whatever he wants. Anyway, we see here a strip on the Underground Sea and a land tax. So you could say that strip is kind of counterproductive. Then again, Edo's ahead on board, so it makes sense to just take care of the land here of Richard. So Richard only having 2 lands here and an Icy Manipulator staring down at 2 creatures. It's going to tap 2. What are we going to see? Untapping again, though. Yep, just passing the turn. Yeah, this is good news for Edo and not great here for Richard. Richard again tapping down the factory in the upkeep. There's the attack with the line. So he's going to drop to 12. There's the pass, yeah. Edo also not really finding anything, but he's fine, of course, with the way the game's going. Only needs 6 more attacks with that lion. And I have to say the lion is really the MVP here of the game. It's dealt all the damage thus far. It's been on the board since turn 1. There's the attack again. So Richard's life total is now halved. There's another Mox, the Mox Sapphire for Edo, also just passing the turn. So maybe Edo's hand is full of Swords to Plowshares, which are quite useless against the deck of Richard, at least at the early stages of the game. There we see a Chaos Orb here by Richard. There's the Animate. And I mean, because he played out the Chaos Orb, it does mean he has to take 4 points of damage here now. He's on 6 already. And I guess he's now going to use the Chaos Orb. At least I would do that. Yep, tapping the jet. And I wonder if he's going to flip on the factory or the line. I guess he's going to flip on the factory. Going to use his own Mox Jet as the target. He's going to flip here. You got to flip from a feat. And the factory is a goner. And I usually get a lot of questions, by the way, about the Chaos Orb and how it works and what the current ruling is. If you want to know more about that, please check the video's description for more information. And there we see the attack and, of course, the response tap down with the Icy. So at least Richard has stabilized, no longer taking any damage. He's on a 6 life. Gonna tap 2 here. Okay, there's a Relic Barrier. Could be useful. For now, it can tap down one of the Moxen at least. Gonna tap down the Mox Jet. Probably worried about a potential Mind Twist or Demonic Tutor. We, of course, know that Edo is not playing with Mind Twist or Demonic Tutor. But it would be a logical splash. There we see a Plains. And there's the pass. And look at this. Because he didn't attack with the Savannah Lines, Richard is now able to tap down the Plains. I don't think it's gonna matter much, but it's a little plus for Richard. And I think Richard really needs some more lands. Or Moxen. Let's see what he can do. Just a pass though, and tapping down again that Relic Barrier, or using that Relic Barrier in the upkeep of Edo to tap down the Mox Jet. There's the attack in response to tap down. And Edo really needs another threat on the table. Tapping a blue here. Another blue and a white. There's the other threat. Surrender Befried, 3/4 creature. And that means he can start dealing damage again probably next turn. Unless, of course, Richard has an answer to this. And we know that Richard is playing with 4 Power Sinks. But they're kind of useless at this moment because he can only play a Power Sink for 1. And Edo has that 1 untapped Plains there. So he can actually pay for the Power Sink cost. And I have to say, Richard has just been really low on mana this entire game. I mean, what can he do? Ideally, you want to have a land in the Abyss. That would be really, really good. He's playing with 3 Abyss. Playing the Winter Orb here. And that Winter Orb is okay, but also not great, you know, in this situation. There we see him tapping down again the Mox Jet. Going to take a damage from the Serendip. Going to drop to 21. Going to draw a card for turn. Yeah, just probably going to put him on 4 here. There's the attack, tapping down the surrender, taking 2, going to 4. Now remember, Edo is not playing with Psionic Blasts. Of course, Richard doesn't know this. But just as a reminder, so he cannot play a Psionic Blast here to finish the game. And now Richard taking on his turn. Okay, finally finding another land. There's a second tropical island hitting the board. We do see another Icy Manipulator there in hand, but he just doesn't have enough mana to do it all. And remember, he needs to keep a land open as well, or a mana open as well, to use his Icy Manipulator. So again, tapping down the jet here of Edo. Edo taking damage, going to go to 20 here. There's the attack, so probably going to tap down the surrender, going to take 2 again. Wow, he's on 2. That Savannah line's amazing since turn 1. That's just crazy. You don't see that often. Shows the strength of the Savannah lines, in my opinion. And also, of course, the weakness of Richard's deck. And I just think in this first game, by the way, the weakness is simply that he couldn't find enough lands. He was so limited in what he could do. And there was that early pressure by Edo and the time walk, exactly picking up the cards here. Yep, Edo winning game number 1. But remember, it's just game number 1. Both players are going to dive into their sideboards, and we will catch back up with them in game number 2. Game number 2, here we go. So Richard, of course, on the play after losing that first game was quite unlucky. And it looks like Edo already drew his cards. Let's see if Richard had to take a mulligan again. I hope not for him. Hopefully he can just show us what the deck wants to do. Ooh, again a mulligan though. Yeah, going out to 6 and on the play. It's not great. It's not the end of the world. Of course, he can still win the second game, but it's just not a great start. There's a Mox Sapphire into an Underground Sea. Tapping, and there we see a Soul Ring, and okay, there we see a Time Walk. So pretty explosive start here for Richard, but it also kind of means that he loses a big part of his hand and already had a card less than Edo because of the mulligan. Passing their turn, so no Icy Manipulator here. I think that would have been really nice. There we see again a Savannah Lines turn 1. Yeah, this is so annoying for Richard. Remember that Lines in game 1 did so much. Okay, for a moment there I thought he wanted to Winter Orb the Lion, but it's a counterspell. So at least taking care of the Savannah Lines, thinking, okay, I'm not going to get killed by a lion again. So at least that's not going to happen. But look at that, only 2 cards. And one of those, exactly, now his hand is empty. Oh, man. Needs to find something really good from the top if he wants to win this. Yeah, okay. This is a good thing for Richard, that at least Edo is not playing out a creature threat. Okay, there's a Mind Twist. Wow, this Mind Twist changes everything. This is the card from the top that Richard needed. Or are we going to see a counterspell? I hope not. Okay, Psionic Blast coming in from the sideboard. But he is going to lose the rest, the other Psionic Blast from the sideboard as well. I believe he's got 2 or 3 Psionic Blasts in that sideboard boarded Bovin. Also going to play a Disenchant in response to the Mind Twist. But this Mind Twist is really what the second game needed. I was a little bit worried, seeing Richard being empty-handed, passing the turn. But yeah, like I said, this Mind Twist changes everything. There we see a Felwar Stone and a pass. So now both players are just top decking. Which could be good actually for Richard. Finding a Relic Barrier, being able to tap down some artifacts here. Oh, Ancestral Recall from the top. I'm a little bit surprised that Richard is not tapping down the Soul Ring, by the way, or the Felwar Stone. I think I would tap down the Soul Ring personally. Tapping 4. There we see an Armageddon. Oh, that is so annoying because look at all the artifact mana. Well, actually, coming to think of, okay, it's got another land as well. That Felwar Stone, of course, is kind of useless now. And he still has the Relic Barrier to deal, okay, and a Maze now to deal with the Mishra's Factory of Edo. So yeah, very interesting game. And here we see the Relic Barrier tapping down the Soul Ring. There's the pass. Passing the turn, tapping down the Soul Ring again with the Relic. What an interesting game too. Just really crazy. Both players again in top decking mode. Okay, this is a big deal, I think. The Tundra, okay, into Savannah Lines. So Edo can start dealing some damage with the line again, although Richard, of course, has and the relic and the mace. Interesting that he's going to use the relic against the Soul Ring. And doesn't want to keep it untapped to potentially deal with the Mishra's Factory. Attacking with the line, sending it back. Tapping 3. Are we going to see a Serendipity free? There's the Serendipity free. 3/4 flyer. Passing the turn here back to Richard. Richard finding a tropical island. Tapping 2. Felwer Stone. So both players kind of rebuilding their mana base. And Richard passing the turn again, tapping down the Soul Ring. And here Edo taking damage. And Edo, of course, could consider using the mana from the Soul Ring to animate his factory. But chose not to. And now going to use the Ruby to do that. So now he's got 3 creatures to attack with. And the Mace probably going to go on the Serendip. That means 3 points of damage here for Richard. Richard dropping to 12. And Edo here on 17. And I really think that if Richard can find a Black Source and an Abyss, you know, this match really changes. Because I think the Abyss is really one of the problematic cards for Edo. Now, of course, Edo is playing with 4 Disenchant, so it's not that problematic. But, you know, a well-timed Abyss can at least take care of some of the creatures on the side of Edo if Edo doesn't have an answer. And he's going to untap here. Now, we don't see that Relic Barrier dealing here with the Soul Ring. So he's going to keep it on tapping duty, I think, for the factory. And I guess if you're Edo, you're probably just going to animate factory and declare your attack. And then Richard can respond. He's probably going to tap down the factory, send back the Serendip, take 2 from the line. Going to use the Soul Ring here. Okay, does he have another plan? Going to tap 4. There's a Suchi. And of course, Suchi can be tapped down by the Relic as well, but it's another creature. It's more pressure on the board for Edo. Edo now is going to attack with both. Sending back the Serendip. Probably going to take 2 here again from the line, dropping to 10. On end step, we see the Relic tapping down the Winter Orb here of Richard, so he gets to untap everything. And Richard here tapping 2. Okay, there we see a City in a Bottle taking care of the Serendip. And one of the nice things to note here is that Edo is playing without City of Brass, and it also means that, yes, of course, City in a Bottle is annoying against your Serendips, but it's not as devastating. When you've got like a multiple color deck, you really need those City of Brasses, and then the City in a Bottle can be devastating. But in this case, yes, it's annoying, but it's not the end of the world for Edo. I mean, Edo can still deal some damage if he animates the factory, declares attack. The Relic Barrier would probably tap down the Suchi, and he could still deal 2 points of damage. Okay, here we see again another Armageddon. Playing 2 Armageddons in total. Taking care of the Maze and the Trop. But remember, the Armageddon, of course, also destroys his own Mishra's Factory here. And Richard taking 2 damage again from the line, dropping to 8. And Richard now only has 1 mana. Okay, from the top, finding the Black Lotus, cracking the Lotus, tapping the Sapphire. Are we going to see an Icy? Brain Geyser. Okay, maybe better than an Icy. Gonna draw 2. What can he find? A land would be nice, right? A land and a card like Ancestral Recall. But if I look at him, yeah, exactly, passing turn. If I look at how he's going through his hand, he's not really that happy with what he's seeing. So passing the turn back here to Edo. Edo finding again a factory. Oh, that is so annoying. There's the attack, tapping down the Suchi, taking 2, dropping to 6. Ah, come on, Richard. Can we get to game 3? I doubt it. I hope so. Now remember, Richard has won the Hill Giant Cup 2 years ago, I believe, or 3 years ago with this deck. Going through the hand, and there's the attack again. So Richard dropping to 4 here. Tapping 4, another Suchi. So another Suchi hitting the board. And remember, those Felwer stones on both sides of the table are useless. Okay, now the Felwer stone of Edo is activated because of that underground sea. Richard being on 4 needs to find a solution here. But I don't know if he has one. I mean, even if he has another relic barrier, it's not going to work. He needs to stop 2 creatures. Passes the turn though. Not giving up yet. Does he have an answer? That is the big question. Yeah, if I was Edo, I would exactly animate. Go and declare your attacks. Tapping down the Suchi. What's going to happen? That's it. Edo winning here. Wow. Yeah, I felt like in both games, there we see the Titania song for Richard. I felt like in both games, Richard didn't really find what he needed. And the deck of Edo is just very aggressive. I mean, those lions, they did so much work for Edo. Man. Anyway, Edo winning it here, and this is just the first episode from a series of episodes from the Hill Giant Cup. I've got matches for you all the way to the finals. So if you're enjoying this tournament and you don't want to miss a thing, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring that bell, because then you will be notified every time that I post a new video here on my channel. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for supporting the show. Please consider leaving a like, sharing this on your socials, and of course leave a comment. All these things are free and really help the channel move forward, because YouTube loves that stuff. And of course, you can also become a patron of the show. Check out patreon.com/TimmyTalks to find out how you can support the channel. And the cool thing is you can already support the channel for just $1 a month. And if you support the show, then you can find your name in the end scroll at the end of every single video. What end scroll? This end scroll.
What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Early in the morning, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises. Early in the morning, put him in the longboat until he's sober. Put him in the longboat until he's sober. Put him in the longboat until he's sober. Early in the morning, way hey and up she rises, way hey and up she rises. She rises early in the morning. Pull out the plug and wet him all over. Pull out the plug and wet him all over. Pull out the plug and wet him all over. Early in the morning. Way hey up she rises. Way hey up she rises. Way hey up she rises early in the morning. What shall we do with the drunken sailor? What shall we do with the drunken sailor? Put him in the scout to the husband's son. Put him in the scout to the husband's son. Put him in the scout to the husband's son. Early in the morning, way hey up, she rises, way hey up, she rises, way hey up, she rises early in the morning.
Igitus figitus somba kazi.